everybody. Okay, sorry if the beginning of this video is a little confusing. I'm never quite sure how to do it. I have just spent 10 minutes of my life out in the garden when it started raining and then indoors thinking I was sending you a live video, but in fact it's a taped video, and I know that I don't get the same number of followers for a taped video as I do for a live video, so I'm starting again. So while I boil the water for my coffee, while my beloved is asleep upstairs because it's my turn to be up with Le Chien. And here he is. Where is Le Chien? Here he is, our little dog Charlie, looking innocent as ever. He's just been out in the garden digging a hole, but that's okay, because that's what basset hounds are meant to do with their powerful front claws. It just means I have to fill it in later. But anyway, so he and I have come indoors because he, like me, we like our comfort, so we don't want to get wet in the rain. So I'm just going to, let me put this camera down. I'll keep talking to you, my friends, while I kettle. I'm a cutting, actually. As per usual, I've made my coffee already. See, that's where my head is at this hour of the morning. I have already made my coffee and I'd forgotten I'd made it. So let me sit here with the view outside and my Charlie boy nearby. And I want to tell you why I'm living in France. Okay, the short answer as to why I'm living in France is because my husband is French. We met, in fact, in Hong Kong 21 years ago. We met. I had just come out of a horrible first marriage, but which nonetheless gave me the most beautiful daughters who are now in their 20s, so I have no complaint about that. Sorry, Charlie's just trying to mate with my leg. Charlie, that is horrible. Sit down. No, be a good boy. Sit down. So, Charlie, sit down. No. Stay. Honestly, this boy is naughty. Yeah, so I met my beautiful man, my beautiful Philippe. And we fell in love pretty quickly, actually. I think because having gone through a divorce and a bad relationship, I knew who I was finally. I'd finally grown up, and this was in my 40s, my friends. And so I met Philippe, and I knew immediately because, see, I had two little girls in bed at home, and I wasn't going to date just anybody. I didn't want them to have a series of uncles that they were going to have to, learn to love and then learn to say goodbye to. I knew that the next relationship I had to be serious or nothing. And when I met Philippe, he was so comfortable. We talked about everything, and I didn't address my mind to it exactly, but I just knew he was the one. He knew I was the one. And we married 18 months later. Hang on a second. Charlie is trying to go upstairs to find my husband, who is asleep in bed. He is a bad puppy. I'll just go and get him. Pardon me if I move with you. Charlie, get down here. Charlie, get down. Charlie, now. Pardon me just a minute. Up our creaky stairs. I know. Oh no. Someone has left this study to work. It means that Charlie may be trying to wake up my husband right now. Oh no, he has. I can hear my husband. Charlie, come here now. Oh, Charlie, come. Charlie. Downstairs, you naughty boy. Yes, we have a complicated system of locks in the house because this boy will push through. Not from this unit. Wait a minute. Welcome to our eccentric house. But even in old houses, you'll find a lot of doors don't close properly. Got Charlie, who's not allowed upstairs, mainly because he's a basset hound with a long back, and a back that can get injured as he goes up and downstairs. So the breeder said to us, he must never go upstairs. So Charlie's first thought was, I must get upstairs. Come on, Charlie. Come on, quick. Charlie, no. Okay, so he's coming in the kitchen. Sorry about that, my friends. I kind of think, though, that you might find it quite funny to watch these things, so I keep it in the tape. Because what you're getting is me unfiltered. Anyway, so yes. So we fell in love. We married. My daughters immediately loved my ex, though they were seeing a lot of their dad, who is, but they love him. And that was important for me, that they loved their dad. And then we were together in Hong Kong so we met in 2005 and we left Hong Kong in 2020 for various reasons, not least being the protests in Hong Kong. I think I would have been arrested by the time I'd finished there, because I started putting two fingers up at the police, because they had changed. They had changed completely. I believe they were infiltrated completely by Beijing. And we found out later, actually, that for some years before the protests started, probably when Xi Jinping came in, the police were being sent into China for a little, training, i.e. brainwashing. And which is why the police found it so easy to turn on the protesters, who were kids, who were students, and ordinary people of Hong Kong who just wanted to preserve Hong Kong as a place of freedom of speech with, early access, hopefully one day, to democracy, proper democracy. Anyway, that's another story. So Philippe and I were always going to live in Australia, but we decided in the end I'd always wanted to try living in France. I'd learnt French as a schoolgirl, and I loved French culture. And so Philippe was delighted, and we actually bought a house. At the time, also, my girls, who are our girls, they both wanted to live in Europe. And so we thought, right, we'll all be in Europe together. And so we got it's an old schoolhouse, which is in a very, very small little village in the south of France. And so that's how we met and how we ended up in France. And I found, to my great pleasure and surprise, that this house and environs reminds me so much of my childhood in Tasmania, would you believe? My mum had an English garden full of hellebores and rhododendrons and roses and lavender, and actually not lavender, I don't remember in Tasmania. It would have been too cold probably. But we had so many roses. Mum loved her old-fashioned roses. She used to plant these little miniature roses. She had these beautiful standard roses. We had a fish pond. We had a beautiful weeping beech tree. We had 3 acres, actually, so it was an acre of English garden and 2 acres of bushland. I think I mentioned this last time, with a creek with a platypus in it. And I adored that garden, and it's always stayed as part of me. So when we got here, I'm creating that garden. I'm planting a lot of the plants that Mum planted that bring me back to my childhood. Lots of roses. We've got beautiful David Austin roses from England. And, I'm planting agapanthus, and I'm planting irises, and none of the Australian ones, unfortunately, but, lots of hellebores in the garden at the moment, as you would have seen if you saw the last video. Just going to have to plug in because I'm losing power. 1 minute. And I see I've only got one person who's listening to me at the moment. Maybe we're all terribly bored by the last one, or maybe you're just not up. What's today? Today's Saturday. Okay, you're in America, so maybe you're out. It depends on which seaboard you're on, because if you're on the western seaboard, if you're in New York or down west, Florida, you're not going to be. It's going to be pretty. Yeah, I think you're going to be like. What are you? Is it 12 hours separate? I'm going to have to check. I'll check. But anyway, there's a big time difference. Let's put it that way. You are way behind us. I'm just trying to, yeah. Okay, so now I can sit with this, which is charging. So, um, yeah, I was going to tell you reasons for living in France. Well, there's another reason, and the reason, as I think I mentioned to you, is the culture. It's the people we're meeting. Now we live it's called La France Profonde. It's deep France. It's countryside. It's not by the sea. But a lot of people are attracted here from other countries because it is a very spectacularly beautiful part of France. And so we meet couples of all different nationalities. And in particular, recently, I met a dear couple, so a Vietnamese French poet and her wife, who is fabulous. She's French. And then their dear friend, who is an artist, and she is so beautiful, and she does the most exquisite paintings, and her husband, who plays a tuba. And the artist friend, she invited me to a brunch. It was a girls-only brunch. And I met this wonderful old lady who immediately we clicked. She was eccentric, she was wonderful, she was beautiful, she was funny, and we clicked immediately. So, of course, I invited her and her husband to come and have afternoon tea with me and my husband, which, of course, turned into a very late afternoon tea because we all just got on like a house on fire. And so she's French and her husband is Austrian, and he's one of these extraordinary, courtly, charming Austrians. And they invited us for dinner last night with my poet friend and my painter friend and my tuba friend and my poet's friend's wife, who is quite brilliant, and she's a polymath, and she can do anything. At the moment she's building miniature libraries. She's just wonderful. And we all turned up there for dinner, and I have never seen a place like it. It was like dining in a chateau. It had chandeliers everywhere, and it had oil paintings on all the walls, including my lovely hostess. She does her own oil paintings, which were absolutely beautiful. And, very, she would sit apparently in the Louvre or in the National Portrait Gallery in London, and she would copy portraits and she would copy paintings. And to my mind, they're as good as the original, but then I have a very untutored eye. Anyway. And gosh, I can't tell you what the most favourite thing about being there was, but it has to be the conversation. You see, in Europe, people talk about ideas. We certainly talked about politics, and we certainly talked about the politics going on in in poor United States, and of course we talked about Ukraine, and we talked about pardon me, we talked about the dumpster, otherwise known as the Trumpster, otherwise known as the dumb fuck. We talked about him and his idiocy. We talked about what was going on in Iran, but also we talked about local politics, and we talked about books. And we talked about travel. And my hostess, I will love her to the day I die. This woman, when she was a young girl, she's in her 80s now. When she was a young girl, she read the travel writing of some French traveller, and I don't know their names off the top of my head, but one of them was the first woman to ever travel to Lhasa, Tibet, and another French travel writer. And I think she was in places like Iran and Iraq. Anyway, all very Gertrude Bellish, like Gertrude Bell. And she read these stories and she thought, that's what I want to do when I grow up. And that's what she did. I mean, she's sufficiently well funded, and I believe this is her second marriage, but at any rate, sometimes her husband goes and sometimes it's just her on her own. And the place she feels freest and happiest on the earth is in the stands, as in Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and where else? Well, she hasn't been into Afghanistan. She's been on the border of Afghanistan. But she was describing to me the apricots and the grapes of the Fergana Valley in Uzbekistan. And my friends, that is what features in my story for this year's Year of the Horse book, all about the Silk Road in China. And if you want to hear more about that, just have a look at my posts, because it's one of my latest posts is on this Year of the Horse and the story behind it. But she has seen those places, and her eyes just light up when she's talking about them. And she's very petite and she's very stylish, and she wears fantastic, very arty kind of clothes because she is an artist, as well as a mind. And I just, I want to eat her up for dinner. This lady I would really like to get to know. I want to know her whole life story. She knows that. I told her that. Oh my God, she showed me her kitchen. In her kitchen, it's like two kitchens. There's a kitchen and then there's the bit where the servants, because it was a very old house, where the servants would have cooked. And she's got this lovely range there, an oven range. And she's got all her spices, which are in clear glass containers, which are magnetized, stuck to the side of the fridge right beside the stove. I think that's so clever. And she's got jars and jars and jars of the jams she makes from the fruit trees on their property. She has 9 different citrus plants, and they have an orangery, and she showed me that just last before we left. It was like a night in heaven. I've never experienced a night like that before. But it was, I just thought, wow, that's why we're here. Civilization, conversation, a life of the mind, you know. And their friends are artists. I mean, artists don't have money. Money is not important to these people. What's important to them is ideas and civilization, frankly. And our host, lovely man, we were talking about civilization. He was saying that he despaired that it's an increasingly small group of people that have evenings like this, that have conversations like this, that have just a knowledge and an interest in history and in the past, because we must all, of course, have a knowledge and interest in history in the past, or it'll happen to us again, as is happening in America at the moment, because so many of you, my darlings, have not received the education you should have. And it won't be you substackies, but it will be the people who voted MAGA, the MAGA lot. No education, just simple primeval gut feeling, simple fears. No, they don't believe in grey. They believe everything's black and white. And the black and white they believe in is the inverse of what it should be. Quite extraordinary. But anyway, not to be too negative. He bemoaned that even in Europe, he feels that this circle is getting smaller and smaller. And I've disagreed with him because, I think as long as we bring up our children with our values, with our love of old things, with our love of history, with our love of books in particular, that's the key thing. Get them reading, get them curious about the world around them, make sure that they're polite and kind to other people, but make them interested in the world around them. Get them traveling, and not just traveling, but they have to experience other cultures for themselves. They have to live in other cultures, and then they will understand why people are different and why another point of view is equally valid to their own. That's what creates a civilized world. So that's what we talked about, and it was so beautiful. We had goulash for dinner because the husband is Austrian. He's Austro-Hungarian, and I told them the story of when I was in London, when I was living in London. I went out with a very gorgeous-looking barrister whose name was Titus. I kid you not. In fact, his first name was Andrew and his second name was Titus, but he decided that he wanted to be called Titus because he was eccentric. And I don't know about you, but I just go for eccentric people, probably because I am eccentric myself. Now, I was a lawyer at the time, and I was writing it was a chapter. Well, it wasn't a chapter. It was like a analysis. My specialty was clinical negligence, medical negligence. And so I was writing a kind of an index of all of the medical cases I could get my hands on. And it was an index of what the injury was, what the finding was, and what the damages were. It was going to be like something you could look up. Now, I'm sure the internet's covered all of that, but you could look it up and work out what damages your client was entitled to. So I was writing that for a wonderful man who wrote the book on damages in the UK, Ian Goldring, he and his wife. And Ian took a real shine to me. And he'd asked me to write this chapter because I used to ask questions at these massive, they were called AVMA conferences. So it was basically the Association of for Victims of Medical Accidents, AVMA, in the UK. And it had a equivalent ATLA in the United States. And I even spoke in Boston. Actually, that was the highlight of my legal career. I spoke in Boston about the claims I was doing for women who had radiation injury from radiation for breast cancer. Anyway, so Ian sort of met me through that. And Ian and Margaret invited me to their home in Liverpool when I was doing these schedules. And I think they secretly wanted me to meet Titus because suddenly they whisked me off for dinner at this friend's place. And it turns out it's this young and very beautiful young man who's, terribly posh but kind. He's got a very sweet, kind face. And the thing I loved was that we drove up. We were in this little road in Liverpool, and we drove up, and there was a bay window in this house, and it had a huge statue of Hebe in the window. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I wonder how they got through the window. Well, apparently they had to take the glass out of the window to get the statue in. At any rate, inside the house, instead of having pictures on the walls, he had ordnance maps of Scotland because he loved Scotland and he loved walking in Scotland. I mean, this for me is catnip. I just thought, wow, he's beautiful, he's intellectual, he's fascinating, and he's eccentric. It turned out he felt the same way about me, which means that I was obviously beautiful and I was eccentric, which I've always aimed to be. My husband says to me, darling, you don't need to aim to be eccentric, you are eccentric. And I put my hand up and I say, great, that's what I want to be. Anyway, and so we started dating. Actually, no, there's a little story there. He, that evening, said, oh, I'd like to take you for a drive in my Rolls Royce. And I thought, wow, Rolls Royce. Because in particular, the streets were so tiny. And yes, we had to walk a couple of streets around to find the Rolls Royce, which was parked in a bigger street because it couldn't fit in his tiny little street. And off we went, driving a couple of blocks in the Rolls Royce. And I was suitably impressed. I just thought, this is wild. Anyway. So I was quite keen and he was quite keen, and I wrote him a poem, as one does, and it was all about Hebe. It was about the statue. Hebe was a goddess on the run, as they say, in the sense that her priority was fun night and day, and then I went on to talk about goddesses who refuse to be modest and what happens to them in the end, and they lose their lovely head. I think I might have posted this. Maybe I haven't. I'll post this on my Substack. Anyway, I sent him that poem as a thank you for the dinner, and he was smitten, apparently, and so immediately invited me to a weekend in his croft. He had a croft in Scotland, and he invited along his best friends, and one of them, I kid you not, was a Habsburg princess, and her name was Dorothea, and she had that typical Habsburgian face, no chin, very pale colouring, but fascinating lady. She had such a cracking sense of humour. And she was married to Clive. And Clive is the world's biggest expert on Beethoven. He has written the biography of Beethoven, but also he's an expert on early music. And so he was a lecturer at that time. He's probably passed by now, but he was a lecturer at the University of Leeds, or yes, it must have been Leeds, on early music, and his students would play this early music, which is the first time it had been heard since it had been played centuries ago. So fascinating man, fascinating girl. And they had bought themselves this magnificent old house in Leeds, which had everything from the sort of the servants' quarters at the top right down to the cellars in the bottom. And Clive, the husband, who was such an intellectual, he was a dab hand with, he made parquet flooring himself. So he put parquet flooring in all the places where parquet flooring should be. They had a music room with a grand piano in it, of course. And I remember that, I went and stayed there many times, but I was always put up in the servants' garret. There was a guest room on the second floor, but that was reserved for Titus, my friend, and because we were being very chased. Mainly because Titus was. I slept in the servants' room, which was very cosy, frankly, and I felt very comfortable there. Anyway, yeah, so that's how I met my Habsburg princess. And why am I talking about that? That's right, because last night we were talking about the Habsburgs, because they have a bust of Archduke Ferdinand, and they have Oh, they've got this massive painting in their sitting room, where we sat and had our entrees, not entrees, our nibbles. They have this magnificent large painting of the brother of the poor old Archduke Ferdinand, it was Archduke Ferdinand who was shot, wasn't it, to start the First World War. So it was Franz Joseph was the emperor. So they've got a bust of Franz Joseph and they've got a picture of this brother. And I didn't dare ask if maybe they were related. I know that the husband, he loves his history, so it may just be that he's a fan. On the other hand, I don't know. Who knows? But I felt it would be de trop. I felt it would not be right to ask. I hope that as our friendship develops, I'll be able to find out in the end. Hello, Bruno Vitati. How very interesting. Bruno, are you from Italy or are you listening from America? It would be interesting. No, yeah, I've got 2 people following now. Oh, I think when it says they've got 1 person following, it means you're following yourself. And so, Bruno, welcome. You are the only person listening to me this morning, having a witter. But I enjoyed talking to you anyway, and very much, Bruno. Thank you for being there. So, yeah, I'm talking from France, from the south of France. And I was talking about the magnificent evening we had last night. So if you listen to the rest of the tape, when I stop recording, you'll be able to hear more about it. But it's the reason why I'm in France, because I believe in an old world of values and civilization. I believe in, I don't know, I believe fundamentally in kindness. Kindness. That's the big thing. Tolerance, kindness. I mean, like, do to others as you would do to yourself. That is, Jesus got it right. That's the foundation of good living. I also believe when I die, I want to have on my gravestone, I won't have a gravestone, we're probably going to be cremated, but I want somewhere to put up a plaque for me and it will have my name on it, Sarah Brennan, and I just want to only connect. And that's E.M. Forster. Now, I don't know if you've heard of The Remains of the Day, or he wrote a whole series of books. What was it called? There was a lovely one that there was a couple of English producer-director. They did the most extraordinary films based on E.M. Forster's books. The Passage to India. He wrote A Passage to India. And, oh gosh, there was another one with Helena Bonham Carter. And this young man who's subsequently been found dead, unfortunately, the actor. But she was talking about beauty. Oh, he was talking about beauty, the young man. He was the love interest. And he stood in a field and he yelled out, he was in Italy, and all he could see was sort of poppies and the grass and trees and the clouds. And he yelled out, beauty. And I do that all the time. I do that. That so impressed me, that scene, because that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about beauty and kindness and goodness. Anyway, so in one of the stories of E.M. Forster, and I've read them all, but I've got a brain like a sieve at the moment, so I can't tell you exactly which one it was. No, it was in, not The Remains of the Day, I'm sorry. No, The Remains of the Day, I'm sorry, that's Kazuo Ishiguro, that is not E.M. Forster. What was the name of the book? Anyway, he says, only connect. And that's the motto of my life, only connect. If we don't connect with strangers, we will never learn about their lives. We will miss out on the most profound friendships. We have to connect. And that is the way all human beings have to live anyway. If we connect with others, we will understand them. And we won't blitz the hell out of them. We won't arrest them in their homes. We won't take their children and put them in virtual prisons, like that fuckwit Trump is doing, and ICE. We just have to connect with people outside our circle, frankly. Now, I remember when my little girls, when they were very little, thank you for the hearts. I remember when my girls were very little and I was in an elevator with them, and we were in Hong Kong. And we were in the elevator in our building, and my oldest daughter, she must have been about 6, and my younger daughter was 3. And I had a beaming smile and I said hello to this person in the lift. And little B, whose dad, my ex, was English and a bit of a snob, she said to me, I started chatting with this person who I didn't know, and we chatted, and then I got out of the lift, and B said to me, Mum, you weren't even introduced. And I thought, where the hell did she get that one from? It must have been her English father. Goodness me. And I said, darling, how on earth do you expect to meet people if you don't say hello? You know, that's all you need to do. Say hello, smile. I always do that in elevators. I will say hello to whoever's in the elevator. I have one very naughty friend who used to step into elevators and look with wild eyes at everyone standing in the elevator, especially in offices, and she'd go, hello, like this, just to see their reaction. That's not what I do. What I do is I make eye contact and I smile and I ask how someone's day is going, and then you start chatting. And I have met my best friends that way. In fact, here in France, I mean, my husband and I knew nobody in the south of France, not a single soul. And I have met the most extraordinary friends in queues. So in the garden shop, I mean, garden shops, good places to meet friends because people who love gardens love living things and they love the environment, generally speaking. And I have met extraordinary people in garden queues. When you listen to the earlier part of this video and I tell you about my poet friend and my artist friend, I'll tell you what happened there. My husband and I were going for a drive and we got lost. And I think those are the moments when fate, or God, or whoever you like to tell you, is going to steer you in an unusual way. I said to Philippe, let's just follow our nose. And so we followed our nose. And we ended up, and we did smile and giggle when this happened, in a little village that we knew very, very well indeed. But it was the middle of summer and there was a flower out on one of the trees. And I thought this tree, my husband told me it's a teal, which is a lime tree. But it had this flower that looked rather unusual. And I said, are you sure it's a lime tree? I'm sure it's something different. The flower is different. So I thought, I will ask this person in this there was a little real estate agent underneath the tree. And I thought, she'll know what sort of a tree this is. So I went in. It was a charming, charming lady. French people are gorgeous. You just have to make an effort with the language and they love you. And she said to me, no, it's a teal tree. It's definitely teal. Now, I cast my eye about and I saw this extraordinary painting on the wall. And I just thought, wow. And I said to her, who did that painting? And she said, oh, that is L'Abbé. Her name is L'Abbé or Babette. And she said, that is L'Abbé. And she actually has an exhibition at the moment just across the road. You should go and meet her. So I thought, well, why not? So Philippe and I went across the road and we met this artist and we started talking to her and she was quite lovely. And she said, she showed me, she had a row of paintings and the paintings had poetry attached and the poetry had been written for the painting. So, which I thought was wonderful. So then Babette introduced me to the poet. His name is Annick Dancer. And Annick is half Vietnamese, half French, striking woman. And she's married to this beautiful woman called Claire. And Claire is a polymath. I mean, she's extraordinary. So whenever we all get together, I tend to be talking to Annick because we're both artists in the sense that I write and Annick writes too. And darling, L'Abbé, we call Babette, we all talk together. And then Claire will talk with my husband because my husband's a polymath as well. I mean, he went to Sciences Po in Paris, which is pretty darn good. He had a photographic memory. It's not quite so photographic anymore, but we do not need Google in this house because Philippe knows everything, mainly because he remembers everything he reads. And he has been reading all his life. He is the biggest advertisement as to why one should read daily, every day, for hours. Because his mind is the most extraordinary mind I have ever encountered. Anyway, I'm so lucky. And he's also a very, very good man. But, so that was just through connecting because I was curious. You have to be curious. You have to be curious about the world around you. And I'm very curious, particularly about plants. And I'm also curious about people. I mean, my husband laughs at me because I love watching Love is Blind. Now, you will probably laugh at me too. You'll say, what is this woman writing on subject doing watching Love is Blind? But I tell you, It's about human relationships. It's about love, and it's about cultural differences. And if you watch all the different Love is Blind from the different countries, you will learn an awful lot about the culture of love in these countries, because the love in the program is genuine. If you watch it, it is genuine. And you learn a lot. And in fact, when I was so ill last year and I was seeing the hypnotist, she's a humanist hypnotist because I had psychogenic pain. I told her I was watching Love is Blind, and she said, oh, Sarah, she said, all of us are watching it. All of the psychotherapists, all of the psychiatrists are watching Love is Blind because they want to know, they need to know for their jobs, they need to know about the cultural differences and norms of love. The one I found the most interesting was Love is Blind Dubai. And you know what? I would have become a Muslim after that program. The respect these people had for each other. Now, these were, granted, highly educated, and they were feminist. You know, the men were feminist. They believed in their wives having careers. These were unusual people, but then I think only the most unusual and liberal of people living in Dubai would, or nationals living in Dubai, would go on a program that was A, American, B, that you had to basically talk about your emotions on the screen. But it's worth watching. But anyway, why was I talking about that? That's my ADHD going again. I tend to swap subjects. Sorry. Where was I? Crikey. We were talking about Only Connect. Oh, that's right. Curiosity. Yeah. I am curious about people all the time. I love sitting in airports. I don't know about you. Send us a heart if you love sitting in airports and just watching people go by. Because, yeah, me too. Don't know who that was, but whoever that was, yes, I do too. Because I just want to know their stories. And I look at them and you can tell if they're happy or they're miserable, or, you know, I look for faces. Because it's the year of the horse, and because I write books about the Chinese zodiac for kids, but they're also for adults, particularly if they're adults learning English as a foreign language. But more particularly, I do have adults who collect my books because I don't believe in dumbing down for children. And also they're funny. And also my artist, Harry Harrison, is extraordinary. So yeah, there are adults who collect them. Well, anyway, so there I am outside Intermarché, which is like a supermarket chain. And I'm at it's like a press. A press is like a newsagent. So I'm sitting outside the press, and she was lovely. Marie was the owner, and she was so supportive. And I was sitting there and I was selling my books. And I made these extraordinary friends. I mean, I made friends. My rule was this. Okay, we're in France Profonde, so I was not going to ask every tired, harassed-looking farmer or farmer's wife if they were interested in buying a book for children in English about the Chinese zodiac animals, and indeed Chinese history, because it's right through the books. So I thought, right, first of all, they have to look at me. If they looked at me and I looked at them, I would smile. If they smiled back, I would go, and I would indicate to them to come over. And most of them would come over, and then I would start chatting with them. And then I would tell them all about my books. Now, these were people who, by and large, were French. But quite a few spoke English. There were also expatriates. There was this wonderful man who was from Belgium, and he lives nearby in a very pretty village. And he bought two of my books, one for him, one for his wife, and then spoke about me to his neighbour, who is Portuguese. And she actually works in Intermarché to earn a bit of extra money. And she bought four of my books. Just amazing. Anyway, so I met three amazing new friends this way. Now, one of these new friends, she is Congolese, and she is the most blithe spirit, I suppose you could call her. She is so happy. She told me that the secret of being happy is not to worry about anything, to stop worrying, just to live in the present and enjoy what you have. And of course, she's right. And anyway, so this wonderful woman, her name's Maite, she's married to this extremely tall, gaunt man who is 96. And so Philippe and I went and visited her, at her house. And the reason we visited her is he is virtually immobile. He almost died recently, but she, in her laughing way, because there's something like 18 years between them, she, in her laughing way, said, he has promised me that he will live to 100, and therefore he has to live to 100. Anyway, he's virtually deaf because he refuses to wear hearing aids. And the reason he refuses to wear hearing aids is that he was a professional interpreter around the world. He spent 20 years in Africa, which is where he met Maite. But he also spent time in some of the stands. He was in the States, he was in South America. So he speaks English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and there was another one. I can't remember what it was. German? No, Italian. It was probably Italian. I can't remember. Anyway, so he still speaks these fluently. His mind is clear as a bell. He just has difficulty hearing. He and my husband, this man, he is in this little old farmhouse at the end of a very thin little track, in a house surrounded by curios from all of their visits. They have a collection of African art you've never seen. Absolutely superb. And they've got paintings by who she called the Congolese Picasso. Extraordinary. Right through their house. Now, because they're all very old and obviously they don't have that much money, the place is a mess. But it is, they have got Roman, literally original Roman candles. You know, the ones made out of clay where you would, little amphoras where you would put the oil in and then light the oil. They have got a collection of them behind glass. I've never seen a place like it. Anyway, so these wonderful people had us over, and we are friends. We are friends, well, particularly me and Maite, because we share the same childlike enjoyment of the world. If you are in touch with your inner child, please send a heart, because I'm totally in touch with my inner child. Come on, put your hearts up. And if you're not, that's because you've grown up. But I swore never to grow up. When I was a kid, I'm a Peter Pan, I'm afraid. I am a grown-up, but I'm also, we got some kids there, people in touch with their, yes, me too. You have to. It's the only way, actually, to be really happy. And you see, children are curious about things. Children love people. Children want to know everything. They're curious about why is it that, how do apples grow on trees? That sort of a thing. And that's always been me. So, and that to me will keep me young. My knees are giving in, which is really bad at the moment. Got a bit of problem with the old arthritis. But I want my brain, I've said to my darling Philippe that I want us to live to at least 110, possibly 120. He says to me, well, that's interesting because the money is not going to hold out that long. Now, fortunately, here in France, we do have this wonderful system of EPADs. Well, old people's homes. Unlike in America, these are free. These are on the state. It's extraordinary. And I know France is in terrible financial trouble, but it's extraordinary. Just the way people are cared for here. And don't tell me it's communism. It's not communism and it's not socialism. It's just kindness. It's a system set up for kindness. And we look after our weak. We look after our elderly. And so I do know that we could end up in an EPAD and I could live to 110, but I don't want that. I want to live here in our house. I've got to do something about my knees because we have a house with stairs in it and I don't particularly want to move the bedroom downstairs. But you know what? If I have to go up the stairs bottom first for the rest of my life, I'll do that. I'll just wear out a whole lot of jeans. But yeah. And I think so long as you retain that childlike wonder in the world, then you will stay young always. And Maite was like that. We just giggled about things. She was lovely. Anyway, so we're going to be meeting again soon. That was just 2 days ago. So I've just sent her a thank you. And then last night we had this extraordinary dinner that I told you about at the beginning of the tape, with this incredibly, beautiful people. I worked for a while. So I was a lawyer in Australia, but I wanted to be an actress. Yeah, you can tell that, can't you? I like talking a lot and I'm quite very out there. Anyway, So I thought I would travel to England and I would be an actress. But because of a series of unfortunate events involving some road traffic accidents for which I was not responsible, but for the first of which I was held responsible in a court of law, unfortunately, and this brat of a girl whose parents had bought her a Volvo, a new Volvo. I know I had the green light because it just turned green as I went in. Anyway, she had someone travelling behind her, and apparently this is a sort of psychological thing that happens with road traffic accidents. If you're travelling the same direction behind someone who gets involved in a crash, you will always think that they were innocent and it wasn't them. And there was one witness who said that I was the one that was responsible, and the judge believed her. And I had no insurance. I had literally it was a second-hand car belonging to my brother-in-law. I'd bought it off him. It was a week before, and at that time in Queensland, you didn't have to automatically have insurance to drive. You got it later. So I was going to get it that week, and I didn't get it. So I had no insurance. I was 22, and I was wanting to go overseas, and that put the kibosh on all my plans. And so what I did was I worked as a lawyer by day, and then I worked as a waitress by night. And that then, because I wanted to be an actress, and because my boss at the legal firm, even though all my billings were up to date, he found out from my secretary that I was doing amateur dramatics at the weekend, and he pulled me aside and he said very seriously, "Sarah, you have to decide, are you going to be an actress or are you going to be a lawyer? You let me know tomorrow morning." So I went in the next morning and I said, "Hi, I'm going to be an actress." You should have seen the look on his face. This man, had gone the same day up the same lift in the same building every day of his life. Wow. Never travelled. Nothing. But he thought being a lawyer was the most important thing in the world. And somehow I didn't actually agree with him. I wanted to be an actress. What I really wanted to do was to be an actress who knitted, because I love knitting, and who wrote. And now, guess what I am? I am an actress in the sense that I perform for kids in schools, and I love it, and I can ham it up, and they think I'm wonderful, and I can be as extraordinary as I like. And even the teachers love it because they think, oh, she's an author. They're allowed to be different like that. It's fabulous. So I'm as mad as a hatter. So I'm an actress, and I write, and I knit. So there you are. In my 60s, I have achieved my life's ambition, and I've still got years ahead of me. Believe you me. Anyway, so what else? What was I talking about? God, I don't know. This is just Witter Station. Witter Station. You know what? It's now 9 o'clock in the morning. We were out, granted. We came back from this fabulous dinner party. We got back by 1 o'clock, and Charlie was here to greet us. And the trouble with Charlie is that he'll have a little sleep, and then we'll come home and he'll be like, "Oh my God, Mummy and Daddy's home. Yeah, yeah, yeah." And he jumps around and he gets terribly, terribly active. And he has to go out and he has a pee and he has a crap, and then he comes back in again. And it's Mummy and it's Daddy. And I knew he would not go to sleep. So I took him into our little, we call it a salon because it's such a small living room. It's cozy though, cozy as hell, with beams and a pot-bellied stove. It's so pretty. So I took Charlie in and I said to my darling, "Go to bed. I will stay up with Charlie for an hour. And that way he'll feel he's had an evening with Mummy, and then he can go out and do his wee and his crap again. And then he can come in and have a normal bedtime." And that's what we did. And we watched Bridgerton. Send up a heart if you too are watching Bridgerton. You've got to watch Bridgerton. It is amazing. I adore Shonda Rhimes. Anything she makes is made of gold. Send a heart if you love Shonda Rhimes as a producer of the most extraordinary films. Come on, I challenge you. Where's the hearts? Where's the hearts? Because maybe you don't know Shonda Rhimes movies. Shonda is a black woman executive. Yes, thank you. And she makes films about the way the world should be. And Bridgerton is her imagined 18th century. Yeah, I think it's 18th century England, where London is the town, and where basically people of every colour are the nobility. Yeah. So you've got Indian people, and you've got black people, and you've got brown people, you've got Asian people, you've got white people. The Queen is black, and she is magnificent. And she has the most extraordinary wigs that she wears whenever she has audiences. Some shaped like hearts and others shaped like birds' nests. And she's just mad. Wonderful actress. And her bestie, her best lady in waiting is this beautiful black actress, and I don't know what her name is, but she's gorgeous. And then you have, every year she has the debutantes ball, and she decides which of the debutantes is going to be the debutante of the season. And you have this family, and you've got basically the Bridgerton family, and they're thoroughly good people, thoroughly tolerant, thoroughly gorgeous. You know, it's gorgeous. But okay, what I love about that film is, yeah, it's the way life should be. There is, you know, people have to keep secret if they're homosexual, right? At that time in this film. But the colour of skin is absolutely of no import at all. It's irrelevant. And so I'm watching the last season at the moment, and the gorgeous Benedict, who's an artist and artistic soul, he falls in love with this exquisite Chinese girl, and she's like she's just exquisite, and he falls deeply in love with her. And it's so funny because what they've done is they've very deliberately followed the Cinderella story with this particular episode. Not episode, with this particular, yeah, it's an episode. Episode? You know how you have series 1, 2, no, with this particular series. Yeah. They follow the Cinderella story, which is quite charming. Anyway, I'm loving it. So I watched an episode of that in fact, it was the last of that series where finally the Chinese beauty gets married to Benedict, and it's a beautiful love story. And seriously, the chemistry is gorgeous. Charlie and I watched that. He was sitting on the sofa with me, and then I decided it was time for him to go to bed because it was 2:00 in the morning. And so I chucked him outside again, and he did his business, and then he came in, and then, ladies and gentlemen, I have something to confess to you. I sing Charlie lullabies to get him to sleep. Now, you're going to laugh. You're going to think I'm insane, and I am insane. I put my hand up to that. But the fact is, this little puppy is a creature of absolute habit. And this is very much the feature. I'll turn around, you can see him fast asleep in the bed. There he is, dear baby. They're creatures of habit, and they like their habits. So with Charlie, he has to go out in the car with my husband when my husband goes to Intermarché to do the grocery shopping. We have the perfect marriage, by the way. I don't like grocery shopping. Philippe loves it, so Philippe does the grocery shopping. And I do the garden while he's out because he hates doing the garden, and I love doing the garden and other things like that. Anyway, so this little baby boy, when he gets up in the morning, one of us will get up at 7. Well, this morning it was 7:30 because Charlie and I got to bed at about 2:15. And he was a good boy. He hadn't done any wee or poo in the kitchen, which is something we're trying to get him out of because he is a stubborn breed. Basset hounds are a very stubborn breed, and it has taken forever to potty train him. I think we've cracked it. We've had about now almost a week with nothing on the floor. Cross your fingers for me. Anyway, so the first person who gets up has to deal with whatever he's done, and this morning there was nothing. And then just basically be here for Charlie and write. It's a good period of time to write or to talk to my lovely subscribers, of which I now have 4. Hello, hi Kathleen. Kathleen Bloom. No, yes, I haven't got my glasses on. I should have them on. It's very nice to meet you. I wish I could see all your names. I can't. They tend to go up the screen. Anyway, so yes. What else? Look, I think it's 9:00. I think I'm going to have to get Brecky ready for my beloved because he'll be getting up. I've recently gone back to, have you ever tried goat's yogurt? Oh my God, goat's yogurt is extremely good for the stomach. Now don't go at me, because when you add honey and you add nuts and things like that, you don't taste the goaty flavour, but it's very, very kind for your digestion. And I've had issues in the past with irritable bowel syndrome. I even had Crohn's, which I cured myself of, which is another story, because you're not meant to get cured of Crohn's, and I did through love and a really interesting diet, which is American, by the way. Elaine Gottschall, and it's called the specific carbohydrate diet. So any of you out there have got irritable bowel or anything on the spectrum going up to Crohn's, get on the diet. The other thing that cured me was love. There is a massive mind-body connection. I contracted my Crohn's coming out of a disastrous first marriage, and I met my beautiful husband, who is love personified. And love, my mind was fixed, and my digestion was fixed. And when we left Hong Kong, so I got Crohn's in the year, it was 2000, and it was diagnosed in 2002. No, sorry, I mean 2003 it was diagnosed. And when we left, which was in 2020, we had every test under the sun on our then very good insurance, and there was no evidence of Crohn's on colonoscopy. None. There was mild irritable bowel syndrome. So that's why I have sourdough bread, and if you want my recipe for that, you've got to just scroll down through my posts. You have to be a subscriber, and then you'll see the recipe. And it's also why I have goat's yogurt, which is extremely gentle on the digestion. It actually, most food that you digest causes the stomach to have to work, whereas what goat's yogurt does is it creates the microorganisms that you need in your gut. It's very good for the gut biome, and it's delicious. So that's what I'm probably going to have for brekkie. But as it's 9:05, I'm not sure what time Philippe's going to sleep till. I might just have a brekkie anyway, and then he'll probably have some beautiful sourdough toast of my own making. Thank you very much. When he gets up. Oh, just before I go, have a little look at Charlie. Look at this baby. That is what a dog does when he is completely relaxed. This is one mad dog. If you don't know Charlie, please, please, please read the Charlie Chronicles. I said the other day when I was recording that I was going to write another Charlie Chronicle. I think I'm going to do it today. There he is. He's the most beautiful dog in the world. Anyway, you 4 lovely people. Actually, it's probably 3 lovely people. I'm about to go. Please send me a heart to say you enjoyed our little natter. And I plan to do this more often. Nobody's sending me a heart. Nobody loves me. I know you love me because you wouldn't have stayed on for this long. Thank you. Thank you. You're lovely. I wish you a lovely, lovely day. I really do. Just look at something beautiful today. Look at a flower and just think, how was this created? What power, what creator created this flower? And just think, the world is beautiful. Yes, many, many flawed human beings, but I do believe that the majority of human beings are good. I really do. I think we absolutely veer to goodness. And if we believe that, we will be okay. Anyway, au revoir. And until the next time, bye.